This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. This is me and Lean from arsenalvision.co.uk. On the show today, we have the usual guys, minus Paul, James and Elliot. But in Paul's place, we do have a guest. We have Naveen, who is the tactical match preview guy for 7 a.m. kickoff. Before that, though, just a few thoughts on the game myself. Yeah, it was a difficult game, a very tight game. The Saints came to the Emirates with a game plan after getting battered 3-0 on a weekend. Quite clear that they didn't want to concede goals. They wanted a clean sheet. They wanted to break on us. And they did it quite well for the most part. Quite frustrating, but it didn't help us that our forward players were not quite as sharp as they could have been. Welbeck, yeah, he seems a little bit off the pace in this game. Sanchez gave the ball away far too many times. And wasn't as bright as the levels that he's set himself so far. And Santi wasn't as good as he was on the weekend. So all those things considered, yeah, it was quite hard to break them down. But yeah, we did create a few chances, but their goalkeeper had a stormer, as many goalkeepers tend to do when they come to the Emirates. Either that, or we just can't finish. Make your mind up. Yeah, but there were some bright lights as well, though. I thought our goalkeeper, Martinez, once again, looks really calm. And I was saying before, it was a friend of mine, that I haven't felt as calm when a cross comes in for quite a while now. It's nice to have that. I remember feeling that with David Seaman. Whenever the ball was in the air, it's like, oh, that's all right. He's got it. He's going to catch it and carry on. Yeah, I know it's very early days at the moment. He's only played a handful of games. He's still very young, so I don't want to make concrete judgments just yet, but from what I've seen of Martinez, I'm impressed. Great kicking, great at catching, pretty good things for a goalkeeper to have. Also, Kos the boss, magnificent defender, and he's made a big difference to our defence now. Excellent player, isn't he? Just when he's not there, you realise. When he plays, you realise how much he's missed. No, it's not only his pace, his interceptions, but his passing as well, top quality. And also, I thought Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain done well for parts of the game as well. When he was taken off in the second half, there were some boos apparently. I missed that though, because on the stream I didn't get that. I can understand why he was taken off. Really, you were trying to get a goal. You want to bring on someone who can score goals, Giroud. You're going to take off a player. You're not going to take off Alexis. You're going to take off, a goal scorer, really, are you? And Ox, for all his quality, isn't really a goal scorer just yet. So I can understand the change. But yeah, we found a way through in the end. Ramsey cut the ball back, and Alexis was there on hand to tap it in. As I said, it wasn't our best performance in the world. We can play better. We will play better. But the most important thing was to get three points and then a clean sheet to boot. So, enough of that for now. I'm going to pass over to the guys who will talk in detail about the game. Enjoy.
Do not adjust your podcast. It's another clean sheet, another win for Arsenal. You are listening to the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. We are recording nearly directly following Arsenal's triumphant 1-0 victory at home against Southampton. And as always, I am joined by a couple gentlemen who do a far better job explaining how it happened and what to think of it than myself. The first is the returning champion from last post-match podcast. In case you didn't know we were scoring this, it's James, or Gooner Fanatic 49. James, welcome back.
Delighted to be here with you as always, Elliot.
Just to let you know, James, you're already trailing in the scoring today. And joining us for the first time, someone who everyone should be following on Twitter. If you're not, get following. His name is Naveen, and you can follow him at NJM. That's NJM1211. And he's something of a tactics expert, or more than something of a tactics expert. How about just a tactics expert? You can read him on 7 a.m. Kickoff's blog relatively regularly. Naveen, thanks for coming on.
Thanks. Way too kind with the tactics expert thing. I'm just kind of a dude who throws out ideas and hopes they stick. So,
well,
expert, educated guesser.
For not accepting the praise, you are now trailing James in the points. So there you go. All right. Let's get started. I mean, it was maybe not the most scintillating or sparkling performance, but I think when you look at the statistics and take it in context of how our season has gone, I actually thought it was a good performance. Great to get the win. Southampton missing a few key players, but still a well-organized and determined side. Let's just get started with man of the match. James, for you, who stood out as the key performer and maybe someone who swung the match today?
I think it's difficult to select one player who stood out as such. I mean, I'd probably mention Callum Chambers, who I thought was excellent at right back against his old side. A special mention would go to Koscielny, who I think we've seen in these last two games has brought a real solidity at the back. His ability to press the opposing centre forwards and snip at their heels and come in with those much needed interceptions has been absolutely vital. And actually a mention to Emi Martinez, who, albeit wasn't particularly tested in today's game, I thought he was calm, collected, and did everything that was required of him. And his kicking is surprisingly excellent, actually.
Yeah, he looks like he could kick it out of the stadium. I mean, at one point he came a long, long, long way for what I think was a free kick. And I was convinced, based on some of the keepers we've seen down the years, that he wasn't going to get there, but he got there comfortably. Just looked, to your point, so composed. Naveen, what about you? I mean, there were a couple substitutes too who may have actually been a candidate for man of the match. Giroud comes to mind for me, and if you know anything about me, I'm eating some humble pie saying that. But do you have a particular star of the match, or like James, do you want to spread your money around?
I mean, I think it makes sense to spread your money around, but for the sake of maybe annoying you a little bit, I think Giroud was really good in this match in a kind of role that I think is best for him. Coming on later into a match, going up against more tired defenders. You saw it in the Everton match. Similar script played out where Everton just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and Giroud, kind of fresh, fit, just kept taking up deeper and deeper positions, ended up scoring that header. And that kind of seems like the role for him when he's fresh and fit. I mean, he's fantastic, and he was really good in this game. I think it's kind of weird to give a sub who hasn't played the whole 90 minutes of man of the match, but I think he's as deserving as any of the players. But I agree. I mean, Martinez. I shouldn't say Martinez, being from it's Martinez. I've been watching way too many Englishmen, I guess, talk. Martinez was really impressive. Seriously, I think maybe this is a question that will come up later, but do you really sit him? If just kind of, I'm almost of the opinion that you're like, Woj, just take your time getting fit. This guy's pretty good. I mean, the assuredness in the air is always something that I like in a keeper, and that free kick you were mentioning is something that really sprung to mind. I think Chambers was excellent. Sanchez was solid. I mean, he had to work a lot harder than I wanted him to actually get on the ball, but I think it's an all-around performance. But I'm going to give it up to the big man up front who came on late.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I think Giroud really changed the game. I thought he was magnificent. I want to talk Martinez. I also want to talk Sanchez a little bit, obviously, because at some point we will have to drop our pants and bring him up for a little while. But let's do something here really quickly. Let's just stay on the question of Giroud and his role in the team. And I think a lot of people are talking about whether Giroud should reclaim a starting place ahead of Danny Welbeck. And on the evidence of what you saw today, they look like they play together really well. I mean, Naveen, is the issue whether Giroud should start ahead of Welbeck or Welbeck ahead of Giroud, or is the issue that they should be starting together and that's what we should be shooting for? What's your take on how playing them together changes our formation and changes the way we play, and if that's what we should be doing?
So playing them together it's kind of an interesting thing, just because both players tend to want to come deep and involve themselves in the build-up. Kind of hold up the ball, link up play. So kind of having both of them there, in a sense, in those kind of roles seems a little redundant, especially because you're going to have to sacrifice, right? This is an opportunity cost question almost, right? If you put Giroud up there with Welbeck, where are you taking off a player in midfield, right? Are you taking Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain off? Are you taking Cazorla off to kind of play a 4-2-2-2 or something like that? Are you playing Welbeck out wide? It gets very interesting. But I think something that we should focus on with Giroud is, now I always think about the first North London derby from last season, where he worked his, can I say nah, he worked his butt off on the podcast.
They are the same thing, ass and butt, by the way. So
there we go. He worked his ass off in that match. Like, he worked his ass off, and it was amazing to see him. Like, but I remember thinking, like, man, if he has to play 40 games a season like this, he's going to run himself into the dust. And I think Giroud's just a player who, when he's fresh and fit, he's fantastic. But when he's fatigued or when there's some nagging injury, like, his performance drops off a ton. So I think if we want to get the most out of Giroud, you got to kind of give him a super sub role and kind of limit his starts to like 20 to 25 a season. You got to keep him fresh. He's not an Alexis Sanchez. You can't treat him like that. And I think that's where the discussion starts is, okay, when do we start him? When do we not? But you're not going to just, I don't think you should just put him up there and just be like, this is our starter or this is our guy on the bench. Just because I think if you keep him on the bench, it's hard to keep him happy. And if you start him all the time, I think you're just going to run him into the ground like we did last season.
Fair point. Well, I mean, James, if you were the manager, and of course, 2 or 3 years from now, that you may be up for that position. You and maybe Jurgen Klopp, if he isn't managing in the German second division by that point.
Wow.
Would you be starting Danny and Olivier together? Would you be rotating them, using Giroud in the super sub role? Something else that I have not possibly foreseen. How do you see Giroud's role going forward?
Okay, without trying to directly skirt the question once again, I don't think it necessarily has to be an issue of whether Giroud and Welbeck should be starting every game together, or whether Giroud's new role in the side should be as this sort of super sub. I think what's so interesting now, especially when you see the kind of dynamic between a Welbeck and Giroud, both two very physical players, both players that can play in the centre and link up play excellently, while also combining that with Welbeck, who is extremely industrious, very quick, has the ability to go out wide and then come inside, and then much in the way that we scored against West Brom, with both of them coming in centrally. I think it gives us a lot more options than we've had in the past. I think, especially last season, we just had we were only able to play this 4-2-3-1 formation with Giroud as the centre pin up top. Now, what it means is, in a game like today, where I was, without meaning to deviate away slightly, was quite shocked to see how distressed Arsenal fans were at seeing Oxlade-Chamberlain being brought off, because Southampton sat quite deep today. There was very little space in behind, and that suited both Welbeck and especially Giroud's attributes not to a T, but certainly more so than that of Alex's. And I think having that sort of diverse options at Arsene Wenger's disposal is going to be vital going into sort of the rest of the season. And couple that with the fact that, knowing the Arsenal, the team tends to just pick itself. Since how rarely do we have less than around 10 players or players in the double figures being on the injury table. But listen, I think it's one of those that kind of depends on the type of opposition that we're playing. Teams that like to sit a lot deeper, teams that don't allow us a lot of space in behind, gives us the opportunity to play both Danny and Giroud. Whereas having the option of Sanchez, Walcott, Alex, and Danny with shearing pace up front against those that play a slightly higher line, it's exciting, I think, going forward.
Yeah, I agree, and I have to say I was stunned by the booing when Ox came off. I mean, I realize he's a popular figure. I don't think it had to do with Giroud coming on. I almost got the sense that the crowd wanted to see someone like Ramsey come off, who sort of continues to struggle. But I have to tell you, I mean, one of the things that we got criticized for in the United game is how we chased the game naively and didn't leave ourselves any protection. I can't imagine bringing Giroud on for Ramsey in that situation. I mean, I guess you could drop Oxlade-Chamberlain deeper into midfield, but overall, the moves the manager made today were good. They worked. The timing seemed to be just about right. So it just was sort of an odd moment in the stadium, maybe just reflective of a larger frustration that exists. The interesting thing, I think, with Giroud, though, is it's not a question for me so much of the opposition we play against, but the people you pair him with. I think for him to sparkle, he's one of these rare center forwards who's probably better at setting others up than creating his own opportunities. Alexis can create his own opportunities. Danny can to a certain extent, but for Giroud to look his best, I think he needs players who will run past him. Ramsey did that a lot last season. Danny Welbeck does that. He wants to get behind the last defenders. Theo Walcott's a player who does that. Then we have a lot of players like Santi Cazorla or maybe an Oxlade-Chamberlain to some extent, or Ozil when he's fit, who don't do that, who want to come inside or drift deeper. So Danny Welbeck may not be a bad choice to partner with Giroud more regularly. But Naveen, I want you to put on your tactical expert, tactical genius hat right now. Not the one with the hole in it. And tell me, so Alexis, late heart-pounding, game-winning goal aside, probably didn't have his most scintillating performance. And I looked at the heat map and where his touches were because I'm sophisticated football hipster like that. And he really did drop deep a lot. This is probably the deepest he's played for us. A lot of his touches came near the halfway line, came in our own half, came 60, 70 yards from goal. What did you see in terms of how he was deployed today? Do you think it was a choice on his part to come deeper to try to receive the ball from the back four? Do you think it was because he was being forced back to defend more? I think the further he gets away from goal, obviously, the less effective he's going to be. That may just be a truism. But what did you see about how he was playing today? And do you think that was by design, by circumstance? And do you think it was a reason why maybe he wasn't as effective in the final third?
I mean, there are a couple reasons for that potentially. I mean, one, Southampton. I mean, with no Schneiderlin, it was almost like they really focused on just keeping everything really tight, really organized, and the space, and controlling the space, kind of, 30, 25 meters and like that kind of area from their goal.
Hang on just 1 second. I'm just going to grab my phone here and convert meters to yards. Okay, cool. I'm done. Thanks. Keep going.
Yeah. And that'll force a player who wants to get on the ball in space, to manipulate the ball, to dribble forward. It's going to force him back. The thing that I always think of when a player like Sanchez, or even when you see it with like Lionel Messi at Barcelona or Argentina, when they have to drop back, it's usually because the midfield isn't doing enough. Like the midfield trio is not doing enough in possession to kind of allow him to play higher up the pitch so he can receive the ball where he wants to. And I think in midfield, Flamini, my thoughts, I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, my thoughts
on Flamini, I know, and I agree with them.
Pretty well known. I think he's pretty useless as a player at this point in his career. I mean, you can kind of see it positionally. I mean, I wrote in the preview, which was supposed to be a short preview that got a lot longer than it should have been for the Southampton match, that if you're going to play a team that's very organized, very compact in defense, that what you have to do is you have to pull them out of the shape, especially because Southampton, what they like to do is they like to flood the side, that the ball is on, like to push more defenders to that side. And they leave space on what is, what in football or in basketball, you call the weak side, right? The other side of the pitch. And a team that is positioned right, whose players are positioned right, and who have the players who can make decisions quickly enough, can kind of move the ball from side to side. Not necessarily quickly, like, panicky, but can move it so that they kind of pull the defense where they want to pull them, and you create openings that way, right? This is kind of positional play 101. And with Flamini there, with Ramsey's kind of weird questionable decision-making, he had some passes too, like that are just, I don't know what is wrong with his, sometimes his passes are just kind of like, maybe they don't go away from something, like they're not incomplete passes, but they seem, hitting them either too hard or too soft.
You know how I would put it? His rangefinder seems like it's off. The weight of his passing is just not on at the moment.
Yeah, and when you have a Flamini and a Ramsey in the form that he is in, like, it's really hard. Like, I would start coming deep and just be like, I could either wait for these guys to kind of work the ball to me, or I can kind of do something about it. And I think Sanchez is kind of take the game by the balls kind of player, and he's going to try and get on the ball to do that. So was it I think like everything, right? It's a mixture of factors, but I think not having a midfield just be able to kind of adequately get the ball into areas, kind of work Southampton's defense left to right in particular, kind of just forces Sanchez to be like to come deeper for the ball.
Yes,
just
screw this, I'm going to do it myself. It's funny you say that, because one of the things I noticed today, I think there was a lot of solo efforts, a lot of individualism going on in terms of Cazorla trying to carry the ball long ways through midfield, Alexis coming back and trying to beat 2 or 3 men off the dribble, even Oxlade-Chamberlain doing it a little bit, not as much slick passing and movement to get the ball through midfield. And I do think that's because Flamini's not capable of doing it, and Ramsey at the moment's not capable of doing it. And James, I think, especially with Arteta out, who gives us that precision, the metronomic passing, who can move defenders out of the way with a little shift of his body and then, find the open man. With Flamini not able to do that, you really need the other 2 members of the midfield to have that precision, that technical ability, and Ramsey's not doing it right now. What did you think? I know he did get an assist late in the game, and you certainly can't dismiss that. But what did you think today of his decision making, his passing, and sort of generally how it impacted the overall functioning of the midfield in building up the attack? Because one of the things I tweeted earlier is that we're seeing a lot of solo efforts from the front 3, that the midfield and the front 3 seemed miles apart at times. And I think a lot of that is down to how Ramsey's playing. I mean, would you agree with that, or did you see something to take some solace in?
I agree to a certain extent. I think it's always easy for us, especially as Arsenal fans, to look at everything from a red perspective, so to speak. I think that a lot of that was in part to do with how solid and organised Southampton were with, was it Cork and Wanyama playing in the defensive midfield role, which very much constricted the space that we had amongst our central midfield players. And I think it was a game that was very difficult for them to really stamp their authority on, which is why we found Sanchez coming deep to collect the ball, and why we had, Alex, Welbeck, even Santi at times, really just trying to take on a man and create the space for themselves. Listen, I don't agree entirely about some of the criticism that's been levied towards Ramsey after today's performance. He hasn't been great, but I think we've been, especially these last couple of weeks, talking about how important it is for Aaron to get back to the basics, to build that foundation going forward. And when I say going forward, I mean just into future games, because today, quite frankly, I thought he was very solid. I discussed in the last podcast how it's more important for him to start focusing far more on the first 2/3 of the field and not worry so much about the final third, especially given the kind of attacking options we now have at our disposal. And I think also that's a lot of his confidence tends to come from those sort of fundamental skills that he possesses. In fact, the most frustrating component I found of Ramsey's game, much like most of his previous games, has been his shooting and his decision-making in the final third.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
I mean, there was one shot, I think it was right at the beginning of the second half, where, I mean, it was a decently struck ball, but it was from about 35 yards. The chances, whatever kind of form Aaron's in, of him actually putting that into the back of the net was so slim. And it, especially given the way in which the game was panning out at the time, it really made very little sense to me. So that is the part of the game that I find most frustrating with him. But I genuinely thought his distribution from the center midfield was good. It was solid. It was the type of game that I was sort of hoping from him, given how poor his recent run of form has been. I think it's also very easy to underestimate the effort and the kind of spaces he takes up from a defensive point of view, which I think is very vital to the way in which we've been playing these last couple of games. I don't think it's any coincidence that, aside from also Koscielny coming back, but the more solid Ramsey's been defensively and positionally minded, the more solid we've been as a team. And I think that was the most promising aspect of our overall performance today was just how few chances we conceded today. I can't really think of many aside from the Pele chance in the first half.
Yeah, well, and I think, we chased the game in a more intelligent way than we did against United, for example. Now, I know against United we went a goal behind, but I thought we had a more intelligent approach to chasing the game. I mean, Arsene after the game, Arsene being the manager, Arsene, not that there was an act of arson committed after the game, although there may have been. I'm not aware of it. But he sort of said that we lacked fluency, and I think when you talk about fluency, that starts in the midfield. And I think we're a team that has always been about slick passing and pretty triangles, and when he talks about his exact quote, let me read it to you. On whether there was something missing, he said, "In our fluency, yes, we didn't have our usual fluency in the game, but it's important as well that you're capable of winning the game when it's not that perfect." And I just wonder, when he talks about lacking fluency, I think a lot of that comes from not having Arteta, who's a more precise, better passing, maybe more tactically astute, positionally astute player than a Flamini, and not having an Ozil. I think we really miss Mesut Ozil, again, who moves in space well. What was that?
Always. You're always going to miss. So this is something like, so Mesut Ozil has been my favorite player since 2010. So I'm going to lay my cards on the table. I don't get the criticism that he gets. I'll never understand it. It's amazing how much better this team looks when he is on the pitch, even when he's not really on the ball. I mean, his ability to create space for others, to allow other players to play, right? Which, I mean, he doesn't get it. Like, this is the big difference between him and Fabregas, in my opinion, is that Fabregas is a guy who wants the ball. He wants to dominate the play. He wants to be the guy who dominates the play. Whereas Mesut is fine not being the guy on the ball, but as long as the team is performing better, he'll do what he needs to do, either move away from the ball, move towards it, create overloads, whatever. I mean, I just don't get the criticism.
Okay, well, let me play devil's advocate for a quick second. Do you not find that some of the issue that fans have with Mesut is exactly that? When the team isn't playing well, you sometimes want to look to your 42.5 million man and see, is there something that he can create for this side? I think if you look to the big games where we lost supremely comfortably, and it still pains me to say this, but in those games especially, I thought, many fans would probably attest that Mesut was one of our weaker performers. Even in aspects of his game, such as ball retention, his ability to create that yard of space was off. And one of the issues, I don't take me wrong, I love Mesut Ozil, so don't think anything else. But in those types of games, if the team is playing poorly, he tends to regress significantly as well.
Yeah, I would say this. I mean, look, the kind of people that enjoy Mesut Ozil's performances for Arsenal probably also understand the comics in the New Yorker magazine, because they're subtle and they're sophisticated and there's nuance to them. But Alexis Sanchez comes out of a phone booth wearing a cape and an S on his chest. And I think,
look, no, who doesn't love Alexis?
But Naveen, I think my point is merely that, in an era of superstars like Messi and Ronaldo and Suarez and Alexis and Aguero, who, run all over the pitch and do things that you see vines of over and over again and that score these impressive goals, I think the reality is Ozil may be worth every penny of the 42.5 million pounds we paid for him, but he earns it in subtle ways that you can almost only appreciate when you take the big step down to players like Jack Wilshere, Aaron Ramsey, Santi Cazorla, Matthew Flamini, who don't move in space as well, aren't technically as astute, aren't as precise with their passing or their control. And let's be fair, part of the emotion and the culture of the English game is passion and blood and thunder and guts and glory. And Mesut Ozil doesn't play that kind of game either. But I think when you look at fluency, when you look at fluency, missing Arteta, missing Mesut Ozil, and Aaron Ramsey being in really poor form, I think is the only way to put it. We wound up with a lot of soloing today, a lot of individualism, a lot of people trying to dribble past their man. And you can have one or two doing that, but Arsenal are not set up, I would argue, to have everybody doing that. And Oxlade-Chamberlain, Santi Cazorla, Aaron Ramsey, Alexis Sanchez, all of them today were collecting the ball deeper and trying to beat a man on the dribble. But let's move further back on the pitch. It was a good defensive display. It was a clean sheet, and I thought a well-deserved clean sheet. And there's a couple issues I think we should get to with that. First of all, Emi Martinez was fantastic again, no denying it. I don't think you can rule out the fact that his composed clean sheet performances the last couple of games have coincided with Laurent Koscielny being back. And that what Koscielny does for the back five is arguably the most important job of any of them. Naveen, when you watch us defend with Koscielny, what do you notice that's different about it? How important has he been the last couple of games? And, do you think that he's also to some extent helping make that keeper look better with the way he can, cover with his pace, always seems to be in the right position, makes the right decision about a tackle?
I always find it interesting that Koscielny is a right-footed left center back, which is kind of weird, but he's so athletic. Like when he's fit, he's so athletic that it doesn't really matter when he goes back, except for, a couple times where he ends up hooking someone for a penalty, which happens every now and then.
Yeah, once every other game.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, his athleticism and his ability, particularly to defend on the front foot, right? Like his ability to make interceptions and to really get tight to a center forward or someone in the space between the lines of the midfield and the back line really helped this team a lot. And I think in the air, Koscielny obviously is a much, much better player than Monreal. I think, though, when it comes to a goalkeeper and his back line, I always think communication is kind of the bigger thing. Now, I'm watching the game on a television, right? Like, I can't tell, how much communication is going on between the back line and the goalkeeper. I mean, that's for someone who's kind of close enough to the match to really know. But it seemed like, there wasn't too much confusion as to, when Martinez was going to come and claim the ball, when he was going to come out, when he was going to stay back. It all seemed really quite coordinated. So I don't know. I mean, that's for someone, I guess, who was at the game to see how well they were communicating. And maybe that's just the thing. Like we're with Monreal playing at center back, he's worried maybe, I mean, this is complete conjecture. Maybe you're worried so much about your center back duties that you just forget to communicate with those around you, right? You're so focused on getting your job right that you forget that you're kind of part of a unit and you have to communicate within the unit. And maybe just kind of having, Monreal just play at a more natural position left back, though I think he did fine individually at center back. And then having Koscielny and Mertesacker kind of in their normal roles. Chambers is a fine right back, despite all the people who want to focus on a performance against a really, really fast dude in Jefferson Montero. Mm-hmm. I think everyone kind of was comfortable in their roles, and that allows you to kind of coordinate your actions better. And I think that's what played a big role in this.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, if you rewind a few games ago, not only do we not have Koscielny playing, but I do think Chambers was going through what you'd expect from a young player, which is a dip in performance. He was again magnificent today, and his return to imperious form combined with Koscielny returning, I think has made a big difference. James, obviously, what can you say? Koscielny's excellent. Certainly anything you have to add to that, but I also would like to get your opinion on the goalkeeper. I'm a huge Wojciech Szczesny fan, but I have to admit, I'm starting to come around to the idea that Martinez has earned the right to at least be in the conversation now for holding on to this starting place. I mean, do you think he's benefiting a little from return to form and a return of an injured player? Or do you think he just genuinely looks more composed and has better distribution, while also acknowledging that he really hasn't faced a lot of chances along the way? What are your thoughts about the goalkeeper situation?
Well, I mean, I think you just answered the question for yourself there, Elliot.
All right, moving on. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I listen. I covered it briefly on was it Sunday now, and my opinions still haven't changed all that much. I think he's a supremely assured goalie. I think it's clear that he, even at his young age, gives the backline significant confidence in his abilities. He's very confident about claiming the ball in the air, which is, I think, especially for this Arsenal side, absolutely integral. And he's a big unit. From that free kick, I mean, he jumped a significant height right at the edge of the box to remove all danger entirely. But as you say, listen, he's a young goalie. He's been in the limelight these last couple of games, no doubt, but he hasn't been truly tested. I mean, what's the fans' reaction going to be as when a 19-year-old keeper, inevitably finally concedes a goal, but B perhaps has a slight mishap. I think you have to revert back to your number one choice, and going back to Wojciech Szczesny, is he's a keeper that can win you points. Now, at the same time, I think it's great to see Martinez play in the way that he has, because perhaps there's an argument to be made that if you, even when Szczesny comes back, you keep Emmy in for a couple of games just to push Szczesny that little bit further. In the same way,
never gets healthy.
Well, yeah. I mean, he seems to be another sort of classic Arsenal signing. But yeah, I mean, we saw when Fabianski came in last season and then got injured again, and we brought Szczesny back, and he looked like a revitalized player. Perhaps you play Emmy for a couple of games and then bring Szczesny in, and almost as an indication that as soon as you have a slight drop in your performance, there's a 19-year-old who's full of confidence and brimming to be on the field that's snapping at his heels. So yeah, I mean, and quickly going back to Koscielny, I think Naveen sort of succinctly described him sort of far better than I can. But I think the difference that we're seeing is, and Monreal, he was decent at centre back. He was nowhere near as poor as some portrayed him, despite being a left back. But Koscielny, when he's not getting sent off and conceding a penalty, is supreme. He's absolutely excellent. I think he's almost a complete centre back. He's so quick. He's phenomenal in the air. He's absolutely phenomenal in the air. And more importantly, and Wenger alludes to this constantly, anytime he mentions Laurent, he always talks about his ability to intercept the ball. His reading of the game is fantastic, and his recovery, his ability to recover is sort of second to none. And that's why him and Mertesacker work so astutely together, because I think when Monreal was playing, we began to see the sort of creaks in Pair's game. But when Laurent's around, he can just mop all of that up. And I think I mean, like I said, aside from when he is having and sort of making a name for himself for all the wrong reasons, I think he's one of our best players.
Let me just
chronic. Sorry. That the Achilles thing is chronic is something that really sucks from that perspective, right? Because the second that athleticism kind of goes away, you just wonder whether Mertesacker is even viable, especially if you want to defend higher up the pitch. I mean, I'm a guy who's very pro Chambers at center back for the future, but if Koscielny kind of loses that athleticism, is it like a Rio Ferdinand situation where when you lose that bit of athleticism, it's not that your decision making was so great, is that you made a decision and you had your body could allow you to actually execute it, right? Rather than he's always making the right decision, he just happens to have the body to make it. So that's going to be an interesting question going forward, to bring some negativity to an otherwise positive podcast.
Absolutely. And just to add one thing on the goalkeeper point, I mean, from both perspectives, I mean, in the Premier League so far, Emiliano Martinez is averaging almost a full shot per game, making a full save per game less than Szczesny, and has faced none inside the 6-yard box or the penalty area.
Way to defend, boys.
Well, sorry, what was that?
Way to defend. I mean, that's what you want, right? You don't.
Well, that's what you want, right? But I guess the question then is, here's another thing to bear in mind about the goalkeeper issue, just really, really quickly, and then I want to move on, is that, Arsenal don't concede a lot of chances, but we do concede a lot of, free kicks and corners and set piece opportunities that can be a challenge. If Martinez is the better at distributing the ball and the better at commanding his area, but maybe not as good a shot stopper, and we don't really know, then I think you can make a strong argument that he's the better choice for us on the basis of the fact that just distribution and set piece opportunities are a bigger concern for us than shot stopping, because we simply don't concede a lot of chances. But we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. There's a chance that Szczesny's leg will fall off or his torso will separate from his lower half. So who knows? I want to quickly just touch on a couple of points that are being made over on Twitter, and this is something we're going to be doing going forward. So always feel free to send your opinions along, and we will either nod in agreement or yell at you on the podcast subsequently. So the Forward Observer at Lenny Pets Puppies, and who wouldn't pet puppies, says that Giroud and Koscielny, absence makes the heart grow fonder, especially on a struggling team. Love the gritty wins, and he signs it with a COYG. Not my favorite, but, come on, you Gunners. That's fine. I agree. I think Giroud is definitely a case of absence making the heart grow fonder for me, because Koscielny, we all knew what we had. Giroud, I think is a little bit of a polarizing figure, but now that he's back, I think people are seeing the difference. Ali, I'm not sure which one it is, at Fostieri, says Giroud made the difference tonight, creates so much space for others, defensively superb, and Martinez looks assured. I think that sort of sums it up. And even when Giroud plays well, he doesn't usually get some of the praise he's getting tonight. And then finally, Hassan at West LDNG, West London G, I suppose that would be, but West LDNG, says Giroud and Poldi up the tempo went on. Welbeck showing signs of promise, but needs to develop a killer instinct. I think that's a fair point. We had chances to win the game that we didn't take. We also could have gotten some penalties that we didn't get. Really, really quickly, just some final closing thoughts. As far as the referee goes tonight, I mean, Naveen, probably a few calls that he got wrong, but specifically a couple of opportunities for penalties that were missed. It didn't matter, but do you think that those were penalties, particularly the handball shout and the block on Alexis?
I mean, yeah, the handball shout. I mean, the block on Alexis, he may have gotten his foot. I haven't seen the replay on that to see if maybe he nipped in on the ball first. I think. But it's the Premier League. They have their weird labor rules about only English referees, kind of preventing them from hiring the best ones. So this is what we're stuck with. I mean, what else? I mean, we've seen it. This year has been a pretty terrible year for officiating all around. So
it's horrible. It's really horrible. I mean, there were calls. There was a ball where it should have been offside, then it should have been a goal kick, and they got a corner kick. There should have been a couple of yellow cards that weren't given, probably including one for Cazorla. I think he took out Cork. Was it Cork he took out, or was that Ramsey who took out Cork? Yeah. What about for you, James? I mean, obviously the win makes it all okay in the end, but did you think that those were penalties, both of them?
I mean, just quickly, has there ever been a good year of refereeing?
No, it's. I mean, look, we don't want to get into it on this podcast, but I'm a huge proponent of video replay, and if anyone wants to hear my thoughts on how I'd implement it, certainly give me a shout on Twitter at Yankee Gunner, and I'd be happy to go into it. But I don't believe in this folksy notion that bad refereeing is part of the conversation in football and part of the culture, and we have to suffer through it.
Right. I mean, listen, they were both clear penalties. The first one's fairly irrelevant because, I mean, we scored about 5 seconds later. The second one on Sanchez was absolutely stonewall. If you look at the replay, was it Yolinda or the Japanese centre back or wherever he's from?
Yoshida,
no. That's the one. We ultimately didn't even come close to getting the ball. It was inside the box, stonewall. But also, I mean, fortunately, these decisions didn't have any relevance on the outcome of the game, and that's what we can be thankful for today.
Well, and as you know, as everyone will have you know, these things even out at the end of the season.
Of course, they always do.
Yeah. Hey, all right, so let's wrap up with just really quickly. We've got Stoke away at the weekend. It's another short turnaround, a Wednesday night game followed by a Saturday, not 12:30 kickoff, but relatively early start. James, would you rotate? Would you stick with the starting 11? If you would rotate, where would you be inclined to make a change?
I think you'll certainly consider bringing in Giroud for Alex, given the physicality of Stoke's side. But aside from that, I don't see there necessarily being any further changes. And I'm extremely confident of a good performance and an away win.
Yeah, I mean Stoke also not in particularly good form. That hasn't been a happy hunting ground for us, but they're a different side than they've been. Naveen, obviously, barring the miraculous rise from wherever he's being relocated to by the Witness Protection Program, I assume we won't see Theo Walcott So putting that to one side, are there any other changes you would make? I mean, is it possible that Alexis Sanchez's fusion engine will have to be recharged at some point, or do we just keep throwing him out there?
I mean, if we want to keep believing he's Superman, then we could just throw him out there every game, just play him like 50, 60 games a season. At some point, I'd really want to see him get a rest. I mean, this is kind of, especially because I don't think he's a player who can turn it off, right?
I agree with that. And I don't think he's a player who helps you much if he doesn't have the energy and the spark to run around like that for 90 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a guy you can kind of trust to kind of like tone it down. Like, I mean, he'd be a great Chicago Bull for any of you NBA fans until Tom Thibodeau ran him into the ground. But yeah, I think it'd be nice if he got a break. I mean, I really hope that Wenger doesn't play anybody really against Galatasaray, so we don't have to go to Turkey and back, play on that terrible pitch and maybe in a blizzard like Juve did last season. But yeah, it would be really great. But I just think that Wenger believes in especially because, like you said, there was a lack of fluency. There was so much individuality that he really wants to play these guys more and more together to try and gain those relationships, to try and gain that coordination in possession, to have that fluency. And I think that's just gonna probably lead to him not rotating instead.
Yeah, that I mean, I think that's a fair point. You know, I'm also a little curious about the Gibbs-Monreal situation. I mean, I know Gibbs had a knock, but he was on the bench, and that's 2 games in a row. A little part of me wonders if in Wenger's mind, Monreal is the first choice left back at the moment. But, James, I mean, just really quickly to you, would you consider, putting Sanchez in the garage and plugging him into whatever recharging system he uses, or you just putting him right back out there this weekend?
At this stage of sort of the form that we're in, I think it doesn't make any sense at all. I think if you listen to a player like Thierry Henry, he said countless times that, as a player, you want to be playing in every single game. And just as we're now three wins on the trot with 3 clean sheets, I think you want to be putting out your best lineup until you really feel as a side that you almost, come what may, whichever side you're putting out, you deserve the 3 points on any given occasion. Also, it's easy for us fans to say, a player's been playing far too many games recently, especially a player like Sanchez who puts in such a shift every game. But ultimately, that's a decision to be made by the medical team, those in the know of whether or not a player's in the so-called red zone, etc. Given the kind of engine that Sanchez has, it really wouldn't surprise me if he could keep going on at least for a couple of weeks, especially with the Galatasaray match as a perfect time to rest him. And given this sort of uplift in form that we have, he's got to be the first name on the team sheet at the moment.
Yeah, I would love to agree with you, but after you said Thierry Henry, I daydreamed through the rest of your point. So I appreciate you saying it, and hopefully it made tons of sense. I think we better leave it there. I just want to add, if you are someone who would like to be featured with your opinion on this podcast, so that we can, again, either agree with it or ridicule it, the best way to do that would be to send a tweet using the hashtag AVPodcast. Just to be clear, that is not an Aston Villa podcast. Thankfully, there probably isn't even one of those. So it's no big deal at all. So that's a hashtag AVPodcast. And then we will discuss your point during the pod, or at the very least, read it out, which is exhilarating, to say the least. Okay, well, it's 3rd win on the bounce, on the spin in a row, back to back, depending on which colloquial term you prefer. And it's off to face the trolls, the very tall trolls, that is, at the weekend. So hopefully make it 4 in a row. And we will be back this weekend talking more bollocks about the Arsenal, as we do. So again, Naveen, the tactical genius, you can read him on 7 a.m. Kickoff's blog. You can follow him at NJM1211. That's NJM1211. That is on the Twitter machine. Naveen, pleasure having you on.
Great to be on.
And Naveen is going to be a doctor, so if anyone needs a doctor, he's your guy. And once again, the man of the hour. You made up for the points deficit early to win this round of podcast, James. It's Gooner Fanatic 49 at Twitter. James, thanks for coming on. As a reward for your victory, I think we will be talking to you again on Saturday.
Well, thank you very much, Elliot. Pleasure as always.
Okay, and thanks for tolerating me. If you would like to get in touch on Twitter and tell me how terrible I am as a host of a podcast, you can find me at Arsblog. That's Arsblog. I'm kidding, of course. I'm Yankee Gunner. And we should congratulate Arsblog on being named the FSF Blogger of the Year. And to Amy Lawrence for, I believe, writing the football book of the year. So Arsenal picking up trophies. That's all we do these days. Anyway, up the Arsenal. Here's to a 4th win this weekend, and we'll talk to you then. Cheers.
Cheerio.